Hi, Miss Fernandi here. The Losers Club by Andrew Clements, Chapter 3. Get ready to read along. Autopilot. 6 weeks of summer school to learn study skills? It was a terrible thing to hear from the principal on the first day of 6th grade. But as much as Alec hated the idea, Mrs. Vance had also said that he was smart and that he already knew what changes he had to make. It seemed pretty simple, really. All he had to do was to stop reading during his classes and pay more attention. So, as Alex walked away from Mrs. Vance's office, he felt a little less worried with each step he took. Then he thought, did she really tell my teachers to keep a special lookout for me? Or is that just something she says to all the kids who get in trouble? It was a fair question, and he got his answer quickly. Because when he arrived late for his second period math class, Alec discovered that Miss Seward had saved him a seat in the very front row, smack in the middle. And when he got to Mr. Brock's third period language arts class, again, there was a front row seat with his name on it. Alec was impressed with the principal's power to reach out and make him sit wherever she wanted him to. However, this seating plan wasn't completely the principal's doing. Long before Mrs. Vance had spoken with them, his new teachers had already decided that Alec Spencer was going to sit front and center in each class every single day of 6th grade life. And there was a reason for that. Behind the door of the teacher's workroom, Alec was famous. At least once a week for the past 4 years, one of his teachers had blurted out something like, "You know how that Alex Spencer always has his nose in a book? The kid is an amazing reader, but it drives me crazy." And 2 years earlier, Mrs. Vance had added a special notice to the parent and student handbook. And all the teachers called this paragraph the Alec rule. Reading library books or other literature during class time is allowed only when a teacher gives permission. Every student is expected to pay careful attention and fully participate in all classroom activities. However, the Alec rule had been a total flop. It had failed to change the behavior of the one kid it had been written for. But on this particular first day of school, the front row treatment was working for Alec, especially after what Mrs. Vance had said to him at their meeting. He did not want to spend next summer stuck in a classroom, and from second period on, he didn't even think about trying to read during class. In math, Mrs. Seward had given a speech about the future, about how mathematics was the foundation for so many different careers. Alec had listened to every word she said. During language arts, Mr. Brock had talked about the different kinds of essays they would have to write during middle school and high school, and how every student needed to get ready for all the hard work to come. And again, Alec paid close attention, and he took careful notes about how to organize a 5-paragraph essay. Sitting up front actually helped. Then, in 4th period science, Mrs. Loudon started out with a slideshow speech that was a lot like the one in math class, except this talk was about how physics and chemistry and biology were going to be the keys to all the best careers in the future. The room was darkened so everyone could see the screen, and about 2 minutes into her talk, Alex switched off his ears and started thinking about the High King, about how the whole Chronicles of Prydain led up to this book, and how Taran had become a true warrior, and what it would feel like to swing a real sword, and how each battle was, "Alec, don't you agree?" Mrs. Loudon was staring into his face. Alec blinked and said, "Yeah, sure, I agree." She said, "Good, because I'd like you to be the one who keeps the list of the key concepts we'll need to review before our state tests in March and April. I'll make some space on a bulletin board for you." There was a flutter of laughter from the class, which Mrs. Loudon silenced with one look. Alex sat up straight. He felt his face get warm, and he promised himself that he wouldn't daydream again. Tracking key concepts in science class was going to be a miserable job. But Mrs. Loudon could have just yanked him out of his seat and sent him to Mrs. Vance. which would have been worse, much worse. The textbooks seemed thicker than ever, and class by class, Alec's book bag got heavier. This was the first year he had to change classes, and dashing to a different room every 57 minutes made him feel like he was running a relay race. And, of course, each academic teacher assigned homework. Alec had been looking forward to lunch. There was always some time to read in the cafeteria or out on the playground. Not today. The food line seemed longer and slower, and he barely had time to gobble a plate of spaghetti and guzzle some milk before the bell rang. Then he had to check his schedule and rush to the far end of the building for social studies. He'd heard that Mrs. Henley was super strict about tardiness. Changing classes made everything seem new today. And even though he felt stressed, the newness was also kind of exciting. But by the time he got back to his homeroom at the end of the day, all the excitement had drained away. Alec felt frazzled and dazed, and he knew what he needed. He needed to dive into a story and stay there, all alone inside a great book. When the last bell rang at 2:53, he was off at a gallop. Operating on full autopilot, Alec heaved his book bag onto one shoulder and lurched along the halls and out the front doors all the way to his regular spot in the bus lines. He sat down right there on the sidewalk, opened up the High King, began to read. But after just a few sentences, Alec felt a sharp jab on his shoulder. Startled, he looked up, half blinded by the afternoon sun. It was his little brother, Luke. "Get lost," Alec snapped and turned back to his book. Luke pushed him again with the corner of his iPad. "Where are you supposed to be right now?" "Duh," Alec said, "waiting for the bus, and here it comes." "No," said Luke. "Think again." Alec stared straight ahead a moment and then said, Oh, right, I forgot." He jumped to his feet, grabbed his bag, and followed Luke back into the school. Luke was trotting, so Alec had to walk fast to keep up. Now he remembered the conversation at dinner one night a couple of weeks ago, except he had been eating and reading and listening all at the same time, but mostly reading. It was a wimpy kid book, so he'd been laughing too. Still, he recalled his mom and dad explaining that they were each starting new jobs in September, jobs at 2 different companies near Boston, which meant they would both have to drive to work every day. His parents were computer programmers, and for the past 11 years, they had worked from home. So this was a big change. And since neither of them would get home from work until almost dinner time, Alec and Luke had been enrolled in the extended day program, 3 extra hours at school every afternoon. Hurrying along behind his brother, Alec felt kind of pleased with himself, because even though the craziness of his first day had made him forget, and even though he didn't have all the details clear in his mind, he had captured most of the important ideas, which was sort of the way it felt when he took math tests, and science, and language arts, and social studies tests, except that was going to have to change. And when the letter from Mrs. Vance arrived home, there would be fireworks, the bad kind. When they got to where the 2 main corridors crossed, Luke stopped. Alec said, "How come you came looking for me at the bus stop?" "Because after dinner last night, Mom told me I had to check up on you." "Oh." Luke pointed. "You go to the gym. I'll be in the cafeteria." "What? How come?" "Because of the directions in the booklet they sent us," Luke said. "Kindergarten through 3rd grade kids report to the cafeteria, and 4th, 5th, and 6th graders report to the gym. Did you pack a snack this morning?" Alec's face was blank. "Snack?" "Yes, a snack. That's what humans call food they eat in between their main meals." For a nerdy 3rd grader, Luke was getting pretty good at sarcasm. Alec smiled. No snack." Luke reached into his backpack and handed Alec a granola bar and a box of apple juice. Alec made a face. "You don't have chips or Cheetos or something good?" Luke ignored him. He flipped back the cover of his iPad and looked at the time. "You're 4 minutes late. If you don't check in by 7 minutes after 3, they call the school office and the parents. And if you're more than 15 minutes late, they alert the police. Mom's picking us up outside the gym at 6. Then he turned and trotted toward the cafeteria. Alec marched straight ahead. The door of the gym was only about a minute away, and during that short walk, he realized something. When this idea had first come back in August, he had been sure that 3 extra hours at school had to be the worst possible way to end each day. But if sixth grade was really going to be the way today had been, that changed everything. Suddenly, those same 3 hours every afternoon felt like a gift from the friendly universe, his own personal chunk of time, with no one to bother him and nothing to do but read and read and read. There was no doubt in Alec's mind. The extended day program had just become the best part of his whole sixth grade year.